I don't know, I just do like blips of it. So then, like, if we both get in the media of what we want to do, then it's easier to do it. You know, like, so like he wants to do Star Trek, so we watch Star Trek.
Yeah.
Watch
Star Trek. Yeah.
I've actually, for the first time, just because I'm running so much like DCC and shit like that. Like I am reading like Fritz Lieber, like all the Appendix N shit.
Nice.
You know, yeah.
Good.
I actually want to start a book club, an Appendix N book club, where we're just going through the back of. Because Appendix N is in the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons
what you should read,
DM guide. Yeah, it's like
a lot of most
me.
campaign settings are like you should read this too.
Yeah,
or watch this. Yeah.
So I'm doing like you know like I said, Fritz Lieber. We're doing like Vance, like Vancian Magic. We're doing I want to do Ursula Le Guin.
I've wanted to go back and read some Jack Vance.
I have a copy of Dying Earth.
Nice.
I've read Ursula. Yeah. I like Ursula.
Ursula Le Guin's amazing.
I probably read a weirder one. It's probably not like the one people should read first.
One I've tried to go and read. Oh,
that one's really good. I've heard.
It's like anyway. That's a tangent, but like what you're talking about. I love book clubs. I'm not the biggest in fiction, but if other people are reading it, I would read it.
Do you want to do a book club?
Yeah.
Like I'm probably gonna hold it at Wayfarer Coffee by my house, and then just like
if other people are doing it, that's what would get me into it. I can read pretty easily, so.
I mean, yeah. I think not
the idea of discussion is what I would care about.
Same. Yeah. That's why we do it. Is like we are discussing this book here at this day of the month, like once a month. Yeah, let's do it. I'll be down. Will got this compendium of short stories from Appendix N authors, and it's a compilation. So I have that coming on the way too. So that's going to be really cool to look at. Apparently, like he said, like each one's better than the last. You got like Elric of it's not Melnibone, it's like Melibone or however it's actually pronounced. The dark elf. Yeah, like. But better than
I don't know
what Driz wishes he was.
I'm not a big fiction person, so I don't know.
Yeah, you're a very real person, Matt. Thanks for implying that.
Yeah,
I'm not a fiction person either.
Yes, I agree. I don't. Yeah,
we should fucking do that.
I would do it.
There's one that I've been trying to get into, which is a much older. People say it's probably one of
the Shadow
best.
one?
Shadow of the Torturer.
Yeah.
Ooh, what's that?
It's from the series of Book of the New Sun. It was written by I forgot his name. I'll have to I can't remember his name. It's touted as one of the best sci-fi fantasies ever.
That's fucking cool.
It's kind of dense, I'd have to say. It's
old style.
It's very old style, but in such a wonderful way.
Like a Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The prose is
like the dense.
A lot of early fantasy is dense.
Fantasy nerds
classic.
only.
Well, paid by the word, like a remnants of that.
It's a
like a pulp,
a remnant.
Well, it was done in the 80s.
Probably pulp.
It was done in the 80s, but it feels in a way almost older than when it was written.
Probably.
What's it called again?
Shadow of the Torturer, or the Book of the New Sun.
It's
a whole trilogy.
You had a weird copy of it, right? It was like
I've got Book of the New Sun, and I've got Shadow of the Torturer.
No, so it wasn't a weird copy too.
Yeah, it's two of the books together.
Oh, that's why. I thought you said it was like
because there's like 3 or 4 books.
Damn, this cover's fucking sick.
It starts off with the main character basically saying how he started off as a torturer's apprentice and became king of the known universe.
That's fucking sick.
Oh, that's very Dune
like
vibes
that.
for you.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I dig shit like that. I'm super down for that. I also think that like it's important to like extend the canon too, because this is my first. Obviously, it sounds like you have made a habit of this, but like this is my first time actually reading like source material for the games I'm running. Really, I ran a Dune game without reading Dune. It was a fine game, but it was nothing like it should have been.
I ran a Ravenloft game without knowing a thing about Ravenloft.
Really? I was about to ask what source materials you read for Ravenloft.
I just read the Ravenloft Gazetteers and all the books.
Yeah, so you still got read
and all the books. I just read.
No, I didn't read the novels. I was huge into reading novels.
You got the setting, yeah.
But the first time I ran Ravenloft was literally just I ran it in Dementaloo, except it was completely different than the one I ran for everyone else later.
Right.
This was like a Wild West in like the fields of France. Like literal like train heist and everyone playing 4th edition characters flying through the air and trying to stop it.
That's pretty fucking cool. Yeah. That's super cool. I didn't realize that. I thought you had like consumed all of the everything that has to do with Ravenloft, but I guess
I've just
a lot of times you can just read like the setting books of the Gazetteers and you can run games just fine.
I just use it to synthesize.
I think it depends
Right.
on if you have a mind for narrative. I know you have a good mind for narrative. Like,
sure.
Because I read tons of history books of the Asian adventures. Didn't help me that much.
Well, because
it really didn't. I have like millions for you. In your mind, you would have 10,000 stories with what I read with Asian history.
Right.
I didn't really use them.
I see what you're saying. Like, I mean, I guess that is like you can
know how to
synthesize from sources.
Yeah.
But there's also just something different about like, because like when you read Dune.
Yeah.
Like I understood from like a wiki read and from reading Burning Wheel Jihad and from all that stuff. Like I understand what we're talking about and was able to tell my own story. But then I read Dune and was like, these are the themes I should be hitting on. This is the voice I should be using. This is how it feels. And that can end up but that ends up being a lot more important for things like Dungeon Crawl Classics where it's all attitude.
Yeah.
It's like all attitude. Or Burning Wheel, too, which is, even though a lot of it is like mechanics heavy, there's a lot of attitude in the game.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
DCC, where you run it, is if there's a way that you can encapsulate that old sort of prose, like D&D originally did with room descriptions. It's almost like just a mimicry of Robert Jordan and
you read a DCC adventure and it reads like one of those novels.
Yeah.
From the unpronounceable god names and all. Like, I fucking love that shit. And this is really my first time doing it, but I feel like I am enriching my games with that, like totally. You have enriched yours. But at the same time, there are things that I'm adding, like I have actually, the way I'm running Burning Wheel this time around, in some of the mechanics that I picked from the codex to use were heavily inspired by Name of the Wind. Yes. So it's like Name of the Wind, slotting that in as like not even taking like, because you can take, you know, any of the Appendix N stuff is like, cool, you can run games like this, and it's like, well, what if I feed a different catalyst in? What if I feed a different source into it? What does it do? And it's really interesting. Because, I mean, it completely changes how magic works. It completely changes the implications of this and that. But it's like, I think expanding the canon is a really interesting thing to do, too. Although, obviously, that's hard because, you know, you got to find something that's like, it captures about the same feel and has some of the same elements and brings something new to the table. You know?
Yeah, like when you find just an author and you're like, I never thought about it that way. Just really simple stuff. That's what you talk about with Sanderson. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You could, you something very simple has changed it completely.
Sanderson just knows how to build magic and have the implications of how things work on a magic physical level, almost like metaphysical level, which it does get metaphysical with his stories too, because all the magic is in a way tied to the metaphysical. But how he just has every other, because of those rules, everything else sort of falls into place of why it works the way it does. Like why society acts the way it does, why it thinks the way it does.
His
it's like how Tolkien designed the languages first. It's like he designed the magic system first, and then everything else was informed by it.
But then you get introduced to it in the reverse. You get introduced to the characters, the world, how people act, what they think, before you ever start understanding what is actually making the world.
But that's probably how he wrote it, was the other way around. Because like you think about,
I don't know.
Like, you think about Name of the Wind. I mean, he probably thought about what kind of story he wants to tell. Or I mean, he's talked about in interviews. Yes, he's definitely. He started with the series is a meta commentary on storytelling, and he started with being like, I want to write a story about stories. Yeah. Just like Tolkien, he designed the Elven language. Like, well, shit, now I need some stories that flesh out the lore of this language. It's probably the same way. He's like, this would be a cool way for magic to work. What effects would this have on everything? And then
and he actually took. You have two options when you build magic in fiction, to do soft magic or hard magic, and he elected to do both. Probably because that's in a way its own sort of using both of those narrative pieces, having its effect into the actual story itself. Because you've got naming, which is you say a name, you don't know what you're about to read next.
Right.
When names are actually said in those worlds, because anything can happen from you just summoning that sort of power.
You don't need to scientifically explain that.
And then you have the scientific method of magic, with how he connects it with actual heat sources and having to abide by these specific rules.
Yeah, makes rules.
It's hard magic on a level where you understand exactly how things are supposed to operate, and thus you have the expectation of what's going to happen next with it.
Yeah,
Right.
You can anticipate what magic's going to do in the same that way that someone in a story holding a sword and swinging it, you can anticipate how that's going to follow up next.
Yeah,
That's pretty fucking cool.
yeah.
I mean, it's.
He's a fuking printer. He just shoots stories out.
Oh yeah,
He's hilarious too, because like you see interviews of him, he's just like, I write stories as a business.
Oh yeah, Sanderson. Yeah,
Casey's like, oh, these stories are great, and then his anytime he's doing the discussions and lectures, like, this is a business, I'm getting paid, here's my cash.
I like the idea that he's just sitting there at his desk, like he just fucking hates this shit. He's just pouring out like fucking whimsy.
I think he likes
he's
it, but
a whimsy machine. He's sitting here like, oh god.
He's pretty realistic on how he says it.
he has progress bars on his website of everything he's writing.
Super consistent.
Like consistent
Extremely
up to
consistent.
the drafts and where they're at.
That's so fucking
Extremely
it's funny
consistent.
because you would almost say it's like you could look at that from without context and be like, that's almost sad that it's reducing writing to like a metrics based business like thing. But then obviously you read his stories and you're like, the amount of like creativity and passion and
that's
and
what's
shit in it,
hilarious.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
He's like, hey, all these writers in this room, this is a life, this is a business, I go to work.
He probably just has it. It's probably because that's probably the best way to do it as a process. Is to treat it
he's
like a
realistic.
job,
He's like,
you know?
dude,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is a job. If you hate writing, then you keep writing because it's a job.
It is, yeah.
But it's just funny. Yeah, it's like Casey's like, oh, this is so amazing, all these stories. And this guy's just like, yeah, I write. It's a job.
Yeah.
I'm literally just like, I go clock in, and I'm like, I'm doing a job.
He does.
See, that's why I can't write like I used to, is because it feels too much like a job. Well, specifically, I write for a living, so it feels too much like my job.
Yeah,
you
that
don't
makes
really-
sense.
yeah,
I don't
clock out.
write for a living in a Stephen King sense, but it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, at the same
You
time,
don't
it's
clock
like,
out. Yeah.
yeah, like when I run RPGs, it never feels like work.
Yeah.
It always feels like fun, but it sucks because sometimes like to bring it back on the topic at hand, sometimes reading feels like work. Sometimes I'm like, I've been so tired of looking at words all day, I don't want to look at a single other word. Unless it has a direct feed into something I'm actively doing, like running a game, I don't give a shit about no words.
Oh, wow.
Which is why I'm trying to get back into reading.
Yeah.
I've read like 2 books in the past couple of years. One of them was Dune, and I sat down and read that in like 3 days.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
it's like I'm trying to read,
Which helped a lot. I'm assuming it really, you were like, oh, yeah, I can read.
Yeah, and but it is, yeah, you know what? I was able to finally,
A
get
lot
my
of people are
GED,
like
I was able
that.
to prove I was literate. You know?
Like, yeah, the Reddit /books is just every hour of the day is, I used to read 3,000 books a second. Why don't I do it anymore?
Right.
And I go, fuck you.
Yeah,
First of all.
I think it's also kind of unrealistic because not only is it like, yeah, you became an adult and have things you need to do, but also on top of that, it's like, I do a lot of literary things. I do a lot of literature adjacent things.
Yeah.
Not
Still
just the
reading.
job that I do, but like,
That's true. You read a lot of adventure stuff. That's still reading.
yeah, like you
Yeah,
read adventure stuff, or like I guess it's like a lot of the reading that I do is more in practical service and stuff,
Yeah.
but it's still
It just dumbs you
reading.
down. You're getting worse and you're dying out.
No, that's not. That's
You're like,
not it at all.
you're reading an adventure and you're like,
That's not it at all.
what the
I'm speaking like a caveman.
Gosh, I feel like I'm
fucking-
ableist. I'm not ableist.
Fuck. But that, I mean, that's why I want the
You
book
still
club.
are reading. Yeah.
I want
If
the
you're
book
reading
club.
an
I want the
adventures.
deadline. I have noticed, like, after running Dune, after reading Dune, I'm like, holy shit, I think of the games I'm running in a completely different way. So obviously, reading this shit fills up the font. I can't just read something anymore. Like, I do need to have, like, a goal in mind. And I figured that's what a book club's for.
Yeah.
You know? And then that way you can even reach some deeper conclusions because you're talking about it with people.
Yeah, tons of.
So
It would help me because I know I sometimes read at a pace where like I miss really obvious stuff. Yeah, like Red Miserables. Yeah, you were there.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, they were like, "What do you think about the part with like Annie and that like she was whoring herself out?" I'm like, "There's no whores in Miserables."
there's no whores in Les Miserables. Damn.
Like not like a degradation. I was like, "What do you mean?" I don't know what you're talking about. Like, yeah, she was a prostitute, and I was like,
There's a lot.
Really?
There were a lot of prostitutes in this story because they were selling their bodies for bread, man.
"Yeah, I totally missed it.
It's a huge plot.
I totally
point.
missed it." I just blew past that part.
I get that. There are things that I'll usually read, like the wiki or whatever, after I'm done reading a book.
Oh yeah, I have to do that every time.
And and after Dune, there are some things I'm like, oh shit, okay, yeah. I totally misinterpreted that or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I also read really fast, which is probably a habit that came from like.
I think I read slow, but I just take more time.
I just read
better.
Like I just not take time as like actually read the information. It's just I just spend more time doing it.
I'm just jealous of you saying that you just read like it's a verb that means play.
Yeah,
you know, because
you read sometimes.
It's hard
I read
for
a lot.
me.
A lot more now.
I've been reading with my. I read all the time at work. That's like my main escape.
That's true.
Oh,
that's how
true.
That's how
true.
I recharge in between people.
I forgot you started reading way more. Yeah, because of that.
And the thing is, what sucks now is I used to read books, and now I just have because of being able to have my phone at work and just having a PDF on my phone, which isn't even pages, it's me just scrolling through text.
Yeah,
I've now become more accustomed to that. I own the book I'm reading right now.
Right. Oh, you like PDF
I have it
more?
I instead have it on my phone.
Really? PDF
that's
is awkward.
interesting.
I hate
that's really interesting.
PDF is so awkward to read.
It does make reading more accessible, not just from a always with you standpoint, but from downloading a PDF. Or let's bring it back to RPGs.
Yeah.
The existence of the Trove has completely changed how like most of us interact with books, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not that any of us have stopped.
We did it before. It didn't change us. We always had our own version of the Trove. Because we would all collect it ourselves.
That's true. We shared stuff for a while.
But you're saying in general the Trove, yeah.
I'm saying in general having a repository of dubiously acquired PDFs. That changed the game.
Unlimited
because like especially games like 3rd edition necessitated that, where you needed to have some obscure source book on hand at all times.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I guess it's just in line with the fact that, especially like 1st edition D&D, right? In order to run or play the game, somebody had to have the rule books. Somebody needed to know what pages stuff were on. Somebody needed to know that some other source book existed. But now it's like, and we're dragging the rest of the industry kicking and screaming into it by the fact that most of this is still piracy. But it's like, now you're just literally like, picking stuff up out of the ether. Just like it's made role playing more accessible too. I don't know where I was going to go with that, but
I don't know. I found Star Trek Adventures on there, basically. I wouldn't have found... There's so many different Star Trek games that you could run for a role-playing game, because they've been making them.
They have a whole folder
started.
on the Trove. It's crazy how many different iterations of Star Trek
I found that, and I started reading some of it, and I went out and bought a bunch of stuff for it still.
Yeah.
I think it helps in its own indirect way.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go in that direction, because I do think you're right. Like, I still buy fuckloads of RPG shit. Even stuff that I got on the Trove, it's like, if I use it enough, it's like, I should probably buy this. I do think that the impact isn't as extreme as it might be if it were like a movie.
It's like a preview when you have a physical copy.
It really helps to have previews of shit I'm about to buy, because a number of times I've been burned buying a fucking source book for something, being like, I would never fucking use this anyway. It's bullshit.
It gets to a point where you're like, this would be a nice physical copy,
right?
But I didn't waste money.
But what I'm trying to get at is that the ubiquity of information, because like I can always just have books on my phone with me that I can read, or if there's some rule from a book that none of us own, we can go get it instead of just being shit out of luck.
Well, I guess
if there's suddenly a rules discrepancy, you can look at forums where people have been having the same question for 2 to 3 years. And there's
a reason why there's RPG Stack Exchange.
Yeah.
Like that site kicks ass. Like, I don't know where I was going to go with all that.
Oh, it just changed the way you're talking about reading and because he talked about reading PDFs and how that changed.
But because of that, I was able to read an author that I definitely couldn't get a hold of most of his books in a physical copy.
Yeah, that's what's weird. Like more and more, piracy is the only way to get to old text. Like it used to be, obviously. Oh, hey, there's a book that exists. Well, they can't get a hold of it because the publisher did it, ran away with it, and it's old.
Yep.
Literally, what else are you going to do?
Or it might be there. Right. No one has that in stock. Good luck trying to get that book before.
Try to get a PDF version, not available.
It's like...
I tried, it's your fault.
The internet represents. Yeah, no, I agree.
It needs to be accessible.
You need to make that shit accessible. The information age is all about the freedom of information. And if there are roadblocks to me getting that information, I will just get the information.
That was the point of royalties.
Yeah,
the whole copyright thing. At a certain point, it's free to everybody. But with today, it's so much.
Well, because you can just renew it. It's so easy just to
it doesn't go away. So then.
But what I'm saying is, like, it's your job if you are someone who is the arbiter of this info to make it accessible. Like, when I come out with, I'm coming out with stuff eventually. I don't know when it is going to be because it keeps changing. Here's another thing. I have been trying to put track marks out for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Setting I've been working on since I was like starting in high school, stuff like that.
That's true. Yeah.
I have looked everywhere trying to find, I want the perfect marriage of a system that makes sense for the setting and what I want to do, and it also is easy. So I'm looking for okay, this is the system I want to use. This is a system that it would make running this easy. This is a system I can write for. We're good to go. You just can't. Like, the best you can do, you could publish shit on, like, most, like, DMs, Guild, Savage Rules, all this shit. Like, oh, yeah, you can publish stuff on our drive-through RPG thing, but we take 50%, you can't publish it anywhere else, and you can't do your own stuff. And then every other system is, like, completely locked down to the point where it's like, oh, you need a license, which in order to get the license, you need a production value that you basically have to be a business to get.
Yeah.
Like, the RPG, that's why I'm down with, like, the Trove, because the RPG industry, like, holds their shit so close to their chest. Yep. Like, what's funny is even though the open game license revitalized the industry, Wizards fucking hates that thing exists. That's seen as a mistake in, like, the business world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so that ubiquity of the OSR, the whole thing where it's like, okay, we're just going to take the OGL and do our own shit with it. It's like, that's cool, fine. But it's such a niche thing. It's like, I'm only going to be able to reach people who are expecting that specific thing. When it's like, what if I want to do it different? What if I want to reach a different audience and stuff? And you just can't. You just can't. It is insane the amount of roadblocks there are in the RPG industry to using an existing system. When in my eyes, it should just be fucking. It's a system,
copyright
dude.
Thing. Yeah,
you know,
it's literally just the general abuse of copyright system we have.
Yeah,
where like, oh, I wrote something. Well, if I die, like, my grandfather will still get, my grandson will still get,
or the corporation will still own it.
And it's like, let the freedom of information go. Like, stop. You can make money, but when you die, you made it.
Right. And then
let it go.
You're right. And then when people complain about piracy, it's like, a lot of times they take it as like you're impacting small creators, you're hurting people by taking money from them. But I almost feel like those are actually big people who are using that as an excuse, when really it's like they're just afraid of letting people just have access to that shit. You know what I mean?
Obviously it's not a good business thing, which is why they keep doing it.
It's like the same thing, like the whole idea that it's like, oh, if you steal from the store, like employees get in trouble for it to get fired. It's like, that's fucking bullshit. You steal from Walmart, they don't give a shit.
Actually, I haven't heard that much. No,
I hear that all the time. You hear that shit.
I've never heard the explanation is don't steal because other people. I've actually just heard don't steal.
Yeah, don't steal because it hurts my job. That's literally
that's true.
The talking line.
Yeah, I guess I haven't heard that in a while.
I've heard it recently.
I think you're right. I see that.
But you see, it's not because people are actually saying that. It's because that's some corporate fucking line that's fed out into the public to make it sound like you're hurting them and not their super massive.
But it's so
line,
big. Yeah, you know? For them, it's literally just like move stuff around, done.
Right.
Instantly.
Yeah. It's
like before a blink of an eye. Yeah.
No.
Literally insurance.
It sucks because that's part of the like. With RPGs as mainstreamed as they are, that's just getting worse.
Well, you know what? On a similar vein, because I watched some video game news I talked about a while ago, Sony just was going to delete 500 games from the Vita because they don't want to support Vita, like PSP. Yeah, the PSP.
Right. Yeah.
So they're just going to delete them.
That's insane.
So done games are going to be gone.
That's
and no one can get them ever again.
And guess what? It'll be illegal to back those things up. It'll be illegal to hack in and get like copies of the game and like keep
and they
that
said,
shit.
Why would anyone want to play old game?
Yeah,
that's what the CEO said.
Right, and he's saying that is not. He's saying that like as like a, oh yeah, we're gamers, we're on the cutting edge. But what he actually means is like, please don't make us fucking. We don't want to support this shit anymore.
So it's the weirdest thing, but they just literally are going to delete.
It's so
500 games.
It's so bald,
and it won't be just available. It just literally will delete them.
It's so bald faced, and it's so clear. Like, even like Wizards, like the shit that they've been doing, it's so clear that they're like, oh man, we'd really like the popularity that the OGL gave us back, but we can't do that again. We can't people do whatever they want with our system. Like, and it's just like, just stop it. Like, I don't, it drives me absolutely
It's so
insane.
short-sighted.
It's extremely short-sighted, and it's motivated entirely by greed.
Yeah.
So all of it is. It's the freedom of information stacked versus greed.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Like
it's at a certain point, piracy, like, you know, it's funny because music was a wave where streaming makes it like you don't really need to pirate anymore. But it's just a wave. It's just gonna come back where people are gonna pirate music more because of with movies and everything. People have to pirate movies more because you don't make it accessible.
I buy all my music, especially because I there was a time I was just streaming a lot of stuff, and it's like suddenly an album would be gone. Yeah. So he's like, oh, this just doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, yeah, I've been doing it way more now,
so
too.
I can just never listen to this again because you decided it's not on the platform anymore. Yeah. And a lot of people are phasing out, like, physical releases and even MP3s. Sometimes it's just on streaming platforms. So I'm buying all my shit off Bandcamp. I have it all. I have digital downloads. I have that shit backed up. I have, like, vinyl records. It's like, because there's at least some permanence to that. There's no permanence to streaming.
Yeah, it's like less of a if an EMP bombed, but like lately it's been more of like, no, they just will literally delete it and won't care.
Right.
It's just weird. It's more of an issue.
Same thing with YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Definitely.
There's
so many things if I go on my favorites list, like half of it's not there anymore.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true.
And some of that's like fucking internet history.
They have them, you know? But for YouTube they have it. They just don't have it.
They've been doing that with Unearthed Arcana.
Really?
Yes. So I was going through because I wrote a whole article about 5th edition house rules for track marks. Yeah. And this was before I realized, oh, well, I can't actually release track marks in 5th edition. It's just untenable unless I literally have like a business. Yeah. Fuck that. So unless I'm literally a publisher. So I was going through Unearthed Arcana and picking bits and pieces that flavored things everywhere. I'm like, this is cool. And there's some Unearthed Arcana articles that just did not have a download button. It said, "Oh yeah, download it below."
You can't re-unearth Arcana.
You can't. Yeah,
dude, that's the way they did it.
I agree.
It's unearthed.
Yeah. I agree.
It's in the title.
The whole point. That's the whole point.
It's a weird point of history right now where it's like, cool. It's the internet. It will always be there. Nope.
Yep.
It's gonna be gone.
And now
it's weird.
But here, let me take this angle though, especially particularly D&D. So, arguably, some of that is in like Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and Xanathar's and all that shit, like edited, like made better or whatever. But it's still not what was originally there. What about the people who liked what was originally in Unearthed Arcana? And also, all the playtest materials, you can't get the D&D 5th edition playtest materials anymore. So the D&D Next stuff. But there's people, including me, who thought a lot of the playtest material was better than what ended up coming out.
Yeah.
So
there's
literally
some cool ideas in it. Yeah.
So literally, what they're doing is they're like, oh well,
didn't exist.
If those playtest materials are out, that's less people who are going to buy 5th edition. If that Unearthed Arcana is out, that's less people who are going to feel compelled to buy Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
I don't know if it's exactly, but
it is
maybe part of it.
It is because
no, that makes sense.
It is because it's literally saying, and of course,
I guess I see what you're saying.
It could be like, let's assume that like there's a very small group of people who want that option. And they do not see a reason to buy that source book because they already have this Unearthed Arcana option.
I guess I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It could be like 20 people. That's 20 less books they sold. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, actually, with the way Hasbro is, yeah. I guess that totally would be, yeah.
Yeah. Especially because it's Hasbro.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's
a weird time.
It's insane how hard it is. It's like, I just want to put my shit out there. And maybe there was a time, maybe around when 3rd edition was coming out, when the OGL was still fresh, I could have done that. But now it's like you need to be at least as big as Kobold Press.
Yeah.
At least. Or you need to release for such a niche. You need to release for a niche of a niche of a niche that it's like, yeah, cool, but like they're looking for something specific anyway, and then maybe 600 people are going to buy it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's cool, but that's not what I want to do. I want to use these systems. I want to do these things. I want these people to play it.
It's one of those difficulties of writing in general. You have to find someone that cares.
But at least when you're writing a novel, you usually don't have to worry about the copy. You're not the thing that's blocking you. Like if I'm a novelist and it's like I want to sell it to people, it's like, okay, yes, I have to go to that specific market. If you're developing a system, not only do you have to worry about because the RPG market is much smaller than like literature as a whole. Yeah. Not only do I have to worry about who am I marketing it to, but you also have to worry about, is this corner of that industry just completely fucking locked out? Because especially good luck selling your own system. Like in the midst of all that, then also being like, oh, not only do I have to put out my own stuff, but I also have to convince people to buy and play a whole
drop it around
system.
like a mixtape.
Yeah,
you could.
Like, hey,
I mean,
here's a whole set of PDFs.
Who published Burning Wheel?
The Luke Crane.
Yeah.
But that also, he did that around 2006 to 8 when he struck when the iron was hot, when the Forge was still active.
That's true. Yeah.
You know,
I heard about that way back in just high school, like freshman year. I heard about it at a convention, and then later it was actually brought to our our high school club.
I remember we got the first
that
book.
story.
Yeah.
It's like how when we were growing up, it was all like image boards, forums, all this stuff. Now it's like Twitter or Reddit.
Yep.
And you could make another forum
smaller,
but who the fuck is gonna you could go make another forum, who the fuck is gonna use it? Or you could try to do something like what Twitter's doing, but you're just going to fail, let alone the fact that you have to be careful that you're not infringing on the copyright of any of their features. No.
I think you're right.
That's a perfect example. That's a perfect example.
I think it's one of those things, I think it's one of those things where markets expand and contract, and it's really, really together right now, and there's going to be a point where it's going to split.
I hope so.
Every business splits. Rome fell. It just happens. It doesn't feel like it at the time.
That's a good point.
I mean,
Rome fell.
Pathfinder happened.
That was a direct result of the OGL.
It could take a while, but Rome fell. I mean, it will eventually split out.
It found a niche. With Pathfinder 2, it found a niche that wasn't there until Wizards of the Coast did its own creative thing, trying to get away from the fact that they had the OGL released.
Right.
Yeah.
And then because of that, they spawned Pathfinder, both in going again by creating a group that said, no, we don't want to play that at all. Mm-hmm. And then having that same group with Pathfinder 2 go, oh, we actually do want to play what we originally ran away from that you've now abandoned.
They've created, now Pathfinder is the second most popular role-playing game. Literally their direct competitor was for, which is why I say that no way are they happy that the OGL happened. No way is Hasbro happy that happened. I think you're right. Rome did fall. I think we're due for another kind of crack in the... There's a lot of indie shit right now, which I think helps, but indie shit can only get you...
Because I feel like, to me, we've done 5th so much, it's really cracking. I think for like freaking veterans, it's like, I'm sure a lot of them moved on to like, maybe Pathfinder 2. Like, because it really has new people coming in all the time. And it's, like you said, you like it because it was simple, but it's like, there's people want more. We're humans. We fucking crave more. We can't stand the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
There is the 5th edition to OSR pipeline is getting bigger, where it's like, just come play basic edition D&D.
That's not, it's going to, especially how slow Pathfinders, they're basically ruining themselves the way they work.
What do you mean?
Just like super slow. Nothing changes.
What?
What you're talking about? OG Pathfinder.
5th.
Oh, 5th. Okay, I'm like Pathfinder.
It said Pathfinder, but then my head didn't. My head didn't register. Okay. I meant 5th is super stale.
It is
for me, at least.
Yes.
And I know for you, I'm preaching the crier. I'm like, you're like, hell yeah. But like, I know some people that we've been with who like, still really like it.
Hold up. Did you say preaching to the crier?
Crier, yeah.
That has an entirely different meaning.
Choir.
Preaching to it, but preaching to the crier. That's
like scream a lot.
Like this guy it's his job to go out and tell everyone what's going on. You're just going, hey, let me tell you what I want.
Actually, kind of, actually.
Very opinionated.
That's actually
or
kind
I'm
of
actually
true.
Crying and shitting and coming.
I really like the image of that.
I think it's very true with Jimmy.
I think a lot of people preach to the crier more than they preach to a choir.
I think it's very true.
Fuck, dude.
But like
that's like deep.
but fifth just like is so. What can you do more with classes? Nothing. I don't ever care about any adventures that came out in the last 4. I've never cared about. Mm-hmm. I haven't been excited about any releases.
No.
Yeah.
Any of them. I don't care.
I think
I literally don't care about.
I agree. I haven't cared about anything since like fucking Out of the Abyss. Out of the Abyss kicked ass. That was the last really good
We had a fun time when they were coming out, and yeah, I know Ben talks about it and he's been excited, but like I just don't care about it.
I do think that less is more. I do think that
I mean, that's not my conclusion, but yeah.
Well, no. But I'm not saying that was your conclusion.
Right.
I'm just saying that it's like
for you, yeah, it's simplifying.
The reason why there's a lot of 5th edition to basic D&D shit, like you're just going, because 1, it's super compatible. 2, ironically, when you have a game where there are 4 classes and you've got like a total of like 50 possible spells, sometimes you make attack rolls go. That's it. When you're filling in those blanks,
expand. Yeah,
you end up doing a lot.
The limits
more.
help creativity.
It's sort of like that. I'm trying. We came up with something earlier that we were talking about, but it's like 5th edition operates this weird space where there's a lot of options, but none of them are particularly good. And then you have like a ton of options.
Initially, they were
overload and shit, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, but if you can just, it's like, okay, you're a fighter, go. It's like, well, what kind of fighter am I? And it becomes more about how you play and how you
in the
write,
beginning, it was really cool.
That's how I started off playing. Just mostly doing online D&D through Neverwinter Nights and stuff. There's
hell yeah.
The game hard coded has a certain number of classes. I've spent thousands of hours playing that. I had to learn how to role play and play the same class over and over again, different ways to get the same level of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I almost feel like if they just had the PHB and the DMG and the Monster Manual, and then everything else from there was like fluff.
Yeah,
it would have been a lot.
I think we've talked about this previously. It's like I don't know. Yeah, everything in the beginning it was wow. Everything feels super powerful. This is really cool. Like. It was weird because feats was a thing where like you had to have all these feats and at a certain point now I feel powerful. Yeah. 5th when it came out, we were like, wow, I'm hitting hard.
Yeah.
Everyone, all the options felt like super purposeful.
Yeah.
Damage felt super good.
And they were. You didn't need more than the player's handbook.
Yeah. It was great.
Didn't,
But then I don't know if it was just I feel like it's not about what like the volume of the new stuff. It's just not good.
Yeah,
it's just not creative, not boring. I'm bored.
Yeah. I wonder if that's because of like I've talked about before how
personally bored.
Like Wizards has a budget. They have a very specific budget that they get from Hasbro that they can work with.
$5.
Paizo is like the whole company just produces shit. They have a whole team for adventures.
Yeah. We talked about before. Yeah. I don't mean to preach too much, but it's just
but. I do think it's a combination of things. I think it's the way the RPG industry works. I think it's the way copyright works. I think it's a lot of the way that like these systems are being designed. And I think when we see a lot of indie games, when we see a lot of people getting disgruntled over like how locked down shit is, people are getting tired of the same old thing. But the people who own all of the same old things don't want to rock the boat because then you make another Pathfinder.
You know
what I mean?
True.
I mean, that's probably what Wizards is trying to stop from happening.
Imagine accidentally inventing a completely different way to play role playing games, because then once you do that, you're not the last one, buddy. There's going to be a whole another section
that
can just overcome like all of your demographics suddenly going towards. Oh wow. This is a way more free way of trying to play a game.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Why are we still playing with the old stuff?
Yeah.
But that's necessary. It's literally like the most basic business tactic, which is a business risks something, they do good, become super huge, they stop risking things, and they acquire risk options. That's what big techs do. The big tech companies don't risk, they buy risk.
Right.
A company gets enough and they get really good.
That's what risk management's
like
all
three
about.
Three people risk it all, have enough for Google to look at it, Google buys it. And it's the same thing with this. It's a big company, they haven't risked it, someone's going to risk it, it's just a cycle.
You're totally right.
We're in a really boring period.
It sucks because we were.
The whole market is for nerdom, and it's boring.
Here's why.
That's so true. That's never been true before. As much of having nerddom and
I've heard
geek.
this discussed about. The entire movie industry is nerdom.
Yeah.
It's all catering to us, and the Star Wars fans won't bitch. It won't stop bitching. But it's literally begging.
Same with Marvel fans.
It's begging for the nerdom money, and literally there's nothing to complain. We've had all of this stuff from comic books and stuff given to us constantly. Nerdom has never been more of a thing now. It's boring.
It is
fucking boring.
Especially when we were when we started in role-playing games, it was with 3rd edition.
Shitty superhero
with 3
movies.
3.5, which is when it was at its peak. Anybody could write fucking anything for 3rd edition.
Yeah.
They were pumping out all sorts of shit. And even if it wasn't good, it was weird. It was off the chain.
Yeah.
And everybody was super into this shit. You also had just a lot of early 2000s, Lord of the Rings, dude. Like the Lord of the Rings movies. Holy shit.
Very early. Wow, this nerdom thing is being shown.
That was defining.
There was tons of others,
we came in
but
at a defining period, and it's been downhill since.
Well, it's
which is why we can say we're grognards at 25.
But I would say it's different from superheroes are coming out, and superhero movies were known to be bad.
Right.
Lord of the Rings came out. Wow, this is a fantasy series that did good for once.
Yep.
It's a difference because of course they were trying to pander early, but it wasn't good. Video game movies starting to actually get traction in people that care writing for it instead of people just writing for it.
Right.
And right now everyone's trying to just recreate Game of Thrones in some manner.
Yep.
Yeah, we're still in the end. I don't know if I would say end of that. I don't know that much sphere, but it feels early on it was Vikings and all of this, and you could literally look at it and be like, "That's Game of Thrones."
That's why
I wasn't watching that stuff. I literally was just I can see what they're doing.
Yeah. That's why we had Witcher as a main follow-on. That was supposed to be Netflix's sort of approach.
It's because we're just begging for more stuff, and it's all boring right now.
Amazon's coming out with an epic Lord of the Rings show.
Yep.
It's supposed to be completely adjacent, which is largely to probably give them enough space to write continual seasons.
Do a
to try to
Mandalorian
get that
thing.
same level of
Fuck,
fervor.
I hope it's. I pray to God that it's lore accurate. I will sacrifice.
If you want to talk, if you want to talk about non-lore accurate Lord of the Rings, buddy, I'm the one to talk to right now. I'm writing fanfic.
No way.
I'm writing some fan fiction at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, Bilbo John Wick.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I take Bilbo after There and Back Again.
Right.
And it's There and Back Again. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back again.
Yeah.
I'm trying to dissect the whole just base plot of John Wick, and instead take the implications of what Bilbo does. He can turn invisible. He was able to do all these grand things, like the reputation he builds up at that level.
So it's literally.
And what he's been talking about, what Bilbo didn't write down in his book.
Yeah, because Bilbo wrote the book.
So funny.
So obviously,
well, you could have taken the Kavoth, it's dubious whether I'm telling the truth approach, but instead you're like, oh no, he did this shit. He did worse, actually.
He did, but what's the worst stuff he didn't say?
It's already strayed so much from Tolkien's source material.
How far are you in on
Only
this?
7 pages in.
It
literally starts off.
2 weeks.
It literally starts off with the Nazgul just
rad.
walking up to Bilbo's house and Bilbo just dealing with him.
Yeah, it's an idea he's had years ago, but he never added to this part.
He's getting Sting everyone to the house. He's taking a sledgehammer to someone. He's taking an axe through the wood floor, the concrete scene, and picking.
Yeah, he just added.
He killed a fucking dragon with a fucking butter knife.
That's fucking amazing. It's literally just this is like a college humor sketch, but one of the good ones.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, a good college humor sketch that makes you go.
But then I'm trying
shit.
to write it as a book, so it's oh geez, this is a lot longer than
that. Is a lot.
Yeah, but
or as a short story at least.
A short story would be pretty.
But
good.
The thing is, I'm actually trying to write from the perspective of at least this basically write from the perspectives of the Russians that broke into John Wick's house, and then were trying to run from him.
Right, but they're trying to run from Bilbo Baggins, the crazy halfling.
Yeah. The idea is people go, well, he's an old hobbit. He probably didn't do most of the stuff that people say he did. Let's break in and take his stuff in the middle of the night. Oh crap, he's after us.
They go back to like, the orc that they got hired by in a cloak, like over in Bree, and he's like, "You did what to Bilbo Baggins?"
Exactly.
Yeah, it is like that. It's literally he's a fan.
Because you just messed with the one hobbit who went and dealt with a dragon who has dwarven and elven connections, a ring that turns him invisible, a magic sword that can find where you're at.
Yeah, I think I find you specifically. He knows a wizard. Yeah, Gandalf the Grey. Ever heard of him? Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Just fucking like, what is it, like the car shop scene where it's like
I love
the farmer, like or so whatever, hit one of them, like it's like, get out of here, and it's like, I heard that you hit my underling. It's like, yeah, well, he killed Bilbo's horse. Oh,
that was great. Yeah. That was great. Yeah. He's like, you just random person. Oh,
yeah, I love. Yeah,
why
you hit my son? Who
who has the gall to do? Oh, yeah, that was great. I love that.
I think that was the first moment of that movie that really set in for me. Like, oh, this guy's like, no.
I think it was. Joke. I think it was built that way. Yeah, exactly. You're like, this is a different movie and it's fun.
The fact that the dude is no longer mad is like, that's...
Yeah. I think the Nobody recent one had something like that a little bit. No, I guess not.
Which one?
Oh, no, it was just like, I can't remember. Anyway, they have another version called Nobody.
It's the same producers.
Oh, with Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
Really we saw it.
RZA's in it.
Yeah.
I forgot. I always forget what RZA looks like. So I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, oh, that's RZA.
I've watched The Man in the Iron Fist enough that I just know what he looks like.
Yeah.
But, like, I love the fucking, when he shoots through 3 people with the rifle that he's got. That's fucking sick.
Yeah,
like,
even all in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, I then the old man, gosh, he's a famous actor.
It's such an unlikely cast. And they seem to do that with John Wick kind of too. Mm-hmm. Like,
they're in plain sight.
Well, Keanu was like kind of a weird choice because I mean he was an action he does a lot of action movies and stuff, but like I don't think he was particularly seen as like the
badass,
the Jason Statham esque badass. Like,
no,
he reinvented himself as a badass with John Wick.
Well, and they were able to do that instead of showing you an action hero by going, "This is the stuff he does in the weekends. This is how he spends his time. This is how he." Instead, they showed it all the reactions of after that hero's already done all that stuff.
Yeah, he's already the badass. Yeah. Why would he need to prove it?
Yeah.
The whole thing is not proving himself.
Yeah, it's like people in the Die Hard universe being like, oh shit, Bruce Willis is back? There's another movie and he's coming to my house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, because all the action heroes were proving themselves, but the whole point of the fun ones recently is that they prove themselves. They don't want you to know who they are.
Yeah, they
desperately don't want you to know who they are. Yeah. And so everything around them is people that do, and they're like, no, don't bring it up. Because that's the fun of it.
I remember watching for Nobody, watching the trailer, and it's just like they're like, well, why? That's it. You didn't defend your family. Why didn't you kill him? And it's like the feeling isn't that he was a pussy. The feeling is that it's like they didn't need that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like I would have gone too far.
Did you say you saw it?
No, I saw the trailer.
Okay, but I mean that was the point. Yeah, that scene was he was basically like he read who they were just by how they were doing everything, and they go, yeah, they don't need to be dead.
Yeah, he doesn't because he can kill them.
Well, and the other part was he's been in hiding for 10 years. 50.
I don't know.
Well, it's his oldest kid, so probably 18.
Oh, that's true.
So he was like, I desperately want to stay hidden, and so I have to be weak because as soon as I try, I will literally kill them. He can withhold himself, but he's like, if I do this, they will immediately know I'm different because he's so trained.
Right, yeah.
He can't fake it. The point is that he couldn't fake it. So like later when he does stuff, he just can't. He slipped back into it. The same thing with John Wick.
It's real good.
John, are you back? And he's like, I don't want to be back, but because of how we are, I can't.
John Wick is about like revenge,
right?
For a lot of
but it's falling into it.
Nobody looks like it's about like it looks like it's about like feeling impotent. Like he's literally Bob Odenkirk is just his character. He's mad that he can't do anything because he can. But he can't, which is why he empties his gun and fucks up all those people.
I'd have to say that's really true because you haven't even seen the movie, but the plot is basically trying to, after that moment, reclaim without breaking his life, reclaim that power.
Yeah, modern day work will destroy you, and there's a point where it destroys you so much he reverts back to it. Because in this one, so John Wick, they did something to him, it wasn't his fault. This one, it is his fault.
Yeah,
he's the one that fell into anger and instigated. It was his fault that the Russian enemy got to him. Literally his fault. Completely the
Russian enemy.
Yeah. So like he kicks,
Soviet movie.
He attacks like
1955.
He attacks 6 drunk guys because he wants to. He could have got the girl out.
Yeah.
And would have been fine. Yeah. But he decided, no, I'm going to kick your ass because I want to. In the movie, they're like, why do you want to kick her ass? And he's like, I'm going to kick your ass. So in this movie, it's his fault.
I think the line is, I'm going to fuck you up.
Yep. Exactly. I'm going to fuck you up. And they're like, why? He could have just picked up the girl and be like, hey, we're good. Yeah. Which is funny because she's like, thank you. But like, she was there. He could have just been like, you're good.
What's funny is she says thank you after probably seeing the most horrific thing she's ever seen in her goddamn life.
She's brutal.
Like horrendous violence.
He went over.
Yeah.
It made no sense for her to be like, thank you.
You know John Wick 3?
Yeah.
You seen that? You know the knife scene?
Yeah.
This movie's just the knife scene.
Well, that scene. The bus scene. Just the bus scene. He doesn't do much knife after that.
No, but I mean, in terms of just the level of...
But it's still like, he just brutally stabs people.
Yeah.
He instigated, and she's like, thank you. I'm like, what?
There's a scene I think about a lot, not only because it's really funny, but because I think it illustrates kind of like how violence should be portrayed in movies like this, where it's like, it's our RoboCop remake, where they literally, it's a bunch of directors remaking RoboCop scene by scene.
Yep.
Highly recommend it. It's fucking hilarious.
Oh, okay.
But the scene where, back to Hanzo the Razor, the scene where there's the woman and the 2 guys, and they're going to do stuff to him. The RoboCop shows up and shoots the guy in the dick.
Yeah.
Well, then he shoots the guy in the dick, and then 2 more guys drag out this other chick, and he shoots just from nowhere, shoots them in the dick. Then from another direction happens again, he shoots them in the dick, and then there are hordes of dudes with their dicks out, jumping over the fence, surrounding him, and he's spinning in a circle, and the theme's playing, and he's shooting people in the dick. Their dicks are like exploding. They're like trying to hold them together, like puking. It's like super graphic. And then at the end, he's addressing the women who were covered in blood. From all these dudes' dicks that have been just spraying everywhere. And he's just like, he does the line where he's like, you suffered a trauma, I'll notify a rape crisis center. But it's very clear that what's actually traumatizing him is the piles of corpses on the ground. Yeah. Like, it's like that. It's like, you see a lot of heroic violence in movies like that, but 9 times out of 10, violence isn't, like, heroic. Like, there's nothing heroic about violence.
Yeah, this movie is not heroic. Like, the fact that he slipped into it was a mistake. And he knew it because later he goes to the same the people that did rob him because he thought they stole something, and then goes over too much. He beats the shit out of them, and then finds out they have a kid, and goes, and then he realizes that he's like, wait, obviously he's like, we have a family. Oh no, I have a family. What? Yeah. But then he's just like, I fell back into it, and I can't believe I did that. I fell back into it. My whole life at this point was to get away from it.
Yeah,
but he can't stay away.
Yeah. And then he's like, okay, I did it. I'm back to normal. And then, of course, because of the whole thing about what he did, it came back to him hard. Like, he messed with the wrong people.
Do you guys ever try to do that with, like, I'm trying to rope this back into games, but it's like, because World of Darkness does a good job with that, where it's like, committing violence, it can never be for its own sake. Like, there's always an intent, and you literally take, like, morality damage from depending how much you do it.
Yep.
Like, but most games, that's probably because of the literature they're based on, like we were talking about before, but like DCC, D&D and stuff, it's always like an afterthought. Like, rarely does it get to the point where it's like, you just like sliced up like 12 people with like axes.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's because it's it's from the original.
Well, right.
I've played a handful of characters where I've deliberately decided, not told anyone, that this character, as this adventure starts, has never killed someone or something. Or I'll set limits as they've never done this thing. So if that then comes up in play, it's a big deal.
Right.
Most of the time when I roleplay that, nobody bats an eye and no one even notices. Sure. Even when I start making an issue, they're like, What's the big deal? And then I have to explain afterwards, and they're like, oh, crap, yeah, I guess that would be a big deal that we just, like, slaughtered all those small, tiny little green men.
Yeah.
Yeah,
throwing their bodies off cliffs.
Well, the moon mice.
Moon mice. Oh yeah, the moon mice. That was one thing.
Moon rats. Sorry, moon rats.
Yeah, had an entire encounter where it's literally just, hey, you're adventurers, right? There's some rats in my basement. If you can get rid of them, I'll give you some gold. Just the most classic bullshit setup.
Sure, yeah.
Where it's like, this isn't even an adventure. This is bait for experience. It's nothing more. I have them go down and fight these rats. The thing is, they're moon rats, at which point they're fighting at night. Anytime that they stand within moonlight, their intelligence score shoots up by 10.
Interesting. Okay.
So they immediately have
like
culture and intelligence. So I have them go in and slaughter these rats, and I'm describing them in the shadows and all like really like how you typically have them described, until they then rip open this section of doorway
civilization
where the ceiling has actually just been broken away. And there's moonlight spilling in, by which there's an entire village of rats, and they're like, "How did you get to us?"
Oh, I didn't know it was the light.
Shit.
I thought it was just. I thought during the moon phase.
What happened to our brothers, the guards?
Oh shit!
I thought it was the moon phase itself.
Oh my god! And there's like little children. There's a temple. They've got the whole thing going on.
Feels bad, man.
And then they go back up and they're like, "Hey, what the hell is? You told us to kill them. They're real rats." Yeah, but it's my property. These rats need to get out.
It's like, you're the bad guy now.
Yeah.
We're the baddies.
Regular peasant offering you 2 gold becomes main villain.
I think that's beautiful, and that's one of the reasons why I tend to be pretty graphic with violence when I run games, is because I try to bring home the fact that it's like, this isn't fun, we're hitting things with swords. Like, you just killed a guy. You know what I mean? It's like, but I want there to be a way. How do you think there's a way in D&D? Because you can't just have people roleplay that don't like violence all the time. That's not strict enough. You can't always come up with all these ideas.
It's a main part of the game. You can't just let it go.
Yes, you can't, and you can't come up with all these ideas to make it to where it's like the moon rats today. That's beautiful. I'm not going to be able to knock that out for every single instance of like violence. So I guess is there a way to run a game of like D&D or a typically violent game in a way that just by the virtue of how you're running it dissuades violence?
Give every combat an objective focus instead of simply an overcome focus. Every combat have an objective, you can fight or you can try to run to the door, and if you are able to pull it out of the way and get everyone in, you can handle it.
Especially when motherfuckers got so many hit points.
You give everyone a way out. You think you represent your monsters as communities. As a group of gnolls that have overtaken some ruins that aren't
personalizing enemies helps. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, with dungeons, have them talk. How you randomly generated dungeons in the old way. You just come up with random stuff, and you're like,
they're just in the room.
Why is this here? And the thing is, people run D&D adventures with, okay, it's just beat down the door. Ooh, another wild monster. Yeah. What you're really supposed to do is go and ask the question, okay, I've generated a map. There's all these different creatures that live in this place. How do they get along on the day-to-day?
You talked about that.
Gygaxian naturalism.
Yeah.
The idea that the dungeon is a biome. I run dungeons as like some House of Leaves shit. Like, it's like a pocket of pure evil. That's why there's also very few dungeons in the world, because they're infinite, pure evil, featureless blue walls. Yeah. Things just find their way in there. But I did roll, like, they were in a dungeon just on the second floor of whatever, just had this map rolling on it, and they meet some elves. And I figure, intentionally, it's like, oh, you have an encounter with these elves. And I'm like, well, what if they're stuck down here?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, you have this conflict where you have these people who can speak common, who are telling them not to come the fuck in, who are obviously in duress. And it's like, well, we don't want to just... Obviously, they are attacking us only because they think that we're what's ever chasing them. What's chasing them? Are they about to chase us? Help, please let us in.
Yeah.
We're convincing that we're good guys. Now we're in here, and now we're trying to help these elves to get out of the dungeon because they have been trapped in here for God knows how long.
Yeah.
From who knows what plane. Yeah, it's... I guess it is just, like, up to you to interpret those. But it's not that hard. Like, you're right. It's like, personalize them, objectives.
The entire time I ran Dungeons of the Mad Mage, that's how I ran it. And the thing is that they actually did a pretty good job in some of the layer levels of really creating situations where there is a whole problem of symbiosis. You're walking into their story. A dungeon. Yeah, you're walking into their story and going, oh, what the heck is why do you have fairies going up against ogres? It's because they have this entire pact or treaty or anything, way of living that they've held for the past dozen years, and they're just trying to keep their small space while all this other craziness is breaking out around them.
Right. I think that's a pretty, when you explain it this way, and the way that you've obviously thought about this a lot already, the way you were able to like pop that off, it does make it easy. Mm-hmm. When you think about it in that way, when you're like, I just need objective-based motivations, I need personalization, I need a natural environment. And then you
and also creatures don't want to die.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it immediately.
No one wants
helps.
to actually
die. Morale
die.
rolls. That's a good thing.
Holy shit! The fact that they took morale like out until like just recently, and it's still like an optional rule, because morale was in basic D&D and stuff.
Yeah, you
was
had to
a
roll.
Core part of the game. It is like every creature has a morale score. Here's when you roll it. So like usually you only had to fight like half of a group of people.
Yeah,
at most. They would route. Yeah, and then they'd either route or surrender or like, and even that, when it comes down to combat, making it clear that you don't want your character to die, of course. Mm-hmm. They also don't want to die. Yeah. You know, like, obviously.
But then that makes them more clever, too. Because if they don't want to die, why would they run into you?
Right. That's another thing I think that's important is the problem with executions. We're already talking about, like combat being like we're already talking about the violence being unrealistic in RPGs just because it actually is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
I've always had moments where like players will like they'll have subdued the other team and they're like, okay, we'll just execute him and move on. It's like that's worse.
Yeah,
that's way worse.
I don't know. It's been a while since we've ever done that.
Performing a coup de grace is bad. Like it there should be some sort of bad thing that happens if you were to decide. The way I've done it is like you can't execute people. They're not gonna turn around and stab your back and escape because I'm telling you this. It's like in exchange for not just executing these people because your characters just wouldn't do that. They understand that they're beaten and they're not going to fuck with you again.
That's true. You could also do the opposite, though, where you just let certain characters or players just execute people and follow through with the consequences.
Right.
I would say consequence is a big thing.
Well, but
Ravenloft started because you just executed a guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just went, okay.
Yeah. I think ceaseless murder is ceaseless murder without consequences is a big thing.
Yeah,
have consequences.
Dench is the perfect example of ceaseless murder leading to consequences. What's funny is that it's not until looking back he thought violence was moving him up, and technically it was. But the place that he's in now, looking back, is like, I don't want to be here. The destruction that I've wrought, and it's like,
no, I hate that player side when one person's just like, oh, let's just kill him, and it's like, there's.
Right.
3 to 4 other players here that all have different outlooks of what we want to do. And I don't think the majority of their characters would really want to just X a guy.
Right. Right. But it's also hard to, like, again, we're talking about, like, enforcement not from a role play perspective, because especially if you're playing, like, even DCC or Basic Dungeons & Dragons, nobody's even going to think about that.
Not at all.
Not 9 times out of 10. But if you make them think about it, just by saying, like, you can't murder a helpless creature. And in exchange, saying they're not, you not murdering a helpless creature will never come back to bite you. Yeah. Like if you let someone go, that's okay.
Actually, that's typically the issue is players worried about the consequences of mechanically allowing an enemy to go away. I find that's on the player side. It's a defensive mechanism of going, well, we have to kill them.
Right.
Yeah. If you can just give the out of no, if you've beat the guy senseless. He doesn't want anything to do with this entire series of events.
Unless you can overpower them, like in Ryan's game, we just straight up were like, no, we have a lot of people that run away because it's what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people live because that's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, you can have them run away. I have that. Well, I have had players like chase down people who run away, but I'm also just like, they ran away. Like it'll be the middle. I've done it in Pathfinder. Middle of the conflict. It's like we're right next to people. It's like, okay, they ran away. They're done. Again, you're never going to see this come back to bite you in this series of events. Like, that's over. I suppose those are all probably the best ways to do it. I'm going to strive to do that a lot.
But I would say if you just have them run away, that is like a lost goal. That's what the problem, just them running away, is I could have gotten to them because as a player character, my numbers in my sheet say I can get to them.
Right, yeah. but you also have to think about
usually, so then they have them trip and just die in front of you. It's not your fault.
But usually in like old school games, it's like a resource management thing, right? Yeah. So
true, more like
the
that.
sooner it ends, the better.
Yes.
But also on top of that, it's like if we're at a point where we care that they're running away, typically that means there was no objective. The objective was to beat them. You beat them, you won.
Yeah,
true.
That's
it's
it,
goalless.
You know, yeah. And I think I would actually probably. Because you're right. You would have the players that are like, well, I'm able to do this. And that's when I'd take the player aside and be like, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to
That's true. If it's without a goal, then it's just like, well, of course, he's part of the goal to take him out.
I'm perfectly fine with it when someone's like, we've got to kill this guy. And everyone's like, what? Why? And they have a completely valid and well thought out reason.
It's different when it's like named PCs.
Yeah.
Named NPCs. Like the Dark Wizard. Like the big evil guy. It's like, well, our whole goal was to come and kill him because he's doing terrible things. Like, yeah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah. But like, it's also a matter of time. Combat takes up way less time when you have morale or objectives, you know.
Definitely.
Because when you're just here, like, oh, I need to inflict the ultimate violence on these creatures. Like, do you know how long? Think about how long in real life it takes to kill somebody. You know, it's not like even gunshots aren't like instantaneous.
Yeah.
Like it's
27 knife stabs and you still survive.
Right, but if you shoot someone and they don't die and they're like, that's it. No, just here's my gun. Just go. You're not gonna be like, it's just been revoked, and then shoot them in the fucking head. You know what I mean? Because that's when everyone else is gonna be like, "Yo, there's something wrong."
That's not
with
self-defense.
You. Like, then we just crossed the line from self-defense.
But then again, there's also people that play the game just because they want to do exactly that.
Yeah, I guess
I
was
scared
talking
of those people.
Well, but I was saying back to how it was originally made. You know, it's a game.
Well, it's a board game. Chainmail was what OD&D is based on. It was a war game.
Yeah,
war game. That's what I'm looking
for. But you still had morale. Like the way it worked in war games too. It's like if you can rout the forces, that's way easier than killing all of them.
Mm-hmm. But
so when you're crawling the dungeon, it's way easier.
But it's like playing a video game and you're not completing it. So if someone runs away, you're not completing it.
But I wonder.
That's why he's talking about goals. That's why the goal thing is important.
Well, yes. Whoa. We'll get back to that in a second.
I have no idea.
Wow. Well, that's why XP for encounters is new. It used to be gold for XP. Yeah. I still use gold for XP for everything. Every gold piece you get out of the dungeon is worth 1 experience point, which immediately means you don't.
Goals are completely different. Yeah, you don't kill. You run away.
The XP you get. Okay, in order to get to become a 10th level magic user, which is like name level in basic D&D, it takes like 600,000 XP. You get like 4,000 XP for killing an adult red dragon, and that's still divided among the party members. Yeah. So you still get XP. It doesn't matter. What matters is the gold.
It's incentives.
So So that's why the 3-pillar experience shit for 5th edition, that's way better than just straight up like combat, because it's like you can get it in other ways.
You talk to a god, you did a mission, actual doing things.
Yeah.
Goal. So, you really added the goal part.
And in OD&D, not only was morale implicit, but it's up until 3rd edition D&D, it was gold for XP. From the 70s up to the 2000s, it was
Reagan era
to get gold.
Reagan era, yeah. Gold for XP. Yep, sounds about right.
It does add like this.
It's a market.
There is like a kind of imperialism bent to old school D&D if you look hard enough, but you can also just be like, oh, you can kind of work around that.
Hey, it's way easier to just make a yogurt business than try to fight the apocalypse. Okay?
It's true. It's very true. That's exactly how it works.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Let me look at what I did to your chair.
Oh, I know that chair. I tried to use it as a ladder once.
How's he been?
Well,
that was me.
Was that you?
Yeah, I tried to use it as a ladder once.
Oh yeah, that just fell out.
Yeah. I broke it in half.
No, I don't think so.
I think I used that chair before.
Yeah.
Splintered. There's splinters.
And you probably just broke part of what was already broke.
It is wood.
Probably shouldn't have just put my full body weight on that.
It's a good test. Thank you.
Yeah.
Safety.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it actually affects the integrity of the chair too much.
No. Nah, he'll be fine.
Why do you keep adding You keep ascribing identitative like pronouns.
That's what we're talking about doing to conceptual people that we're worried about their execution for. Why would that matter any different?
You're correct, but this is also a chair. That's a good point, though. It's like that scene in Silicon Valley where Jared is just like, "Oh, keep saying your name when you get assaulted, so they can't. They have to recognize you as a person." So you're just yelling your name at someone while they're kicking the shit out of you. It's the same vibe. You just keep talking about like you attack like an orc, and you're like, "Oh." Yeah, you hit John for 5 hit points of damage, and it's like, what?
That's what
John?
I try to do.
Like, what?
I try to have the enemies talk to each other.
That's a wild tactic. I've never thought about that.
Just naming everybody?
Yeah, I'm getting the shit kicked out of me, just being like, I'm Casey! I'm Casey!
Oh, you mean, okay.
Or do people be like, what the hell?
I feel like they would be hitting someone with a mental issue, probably. Because that's like a weird... Like, realistically, yeah.
It works, but not
like,
for the
why
reasons
would you?
that were advertised to you. Is because
yeah,
because
like
you're slow.
That's the thing about like self-defense. They say a lot is act weird because no one wants to fight a weird person.
Yeah,
because that's unpredictable. No, you don't fight a weird person. You fight a normal person.
It's very true. You do not
because they're just gonna hit you. A weird person will be unreliable.
That's why. Yeah. That's why they say to get naked.
It's true. Strip.
Yeah.
Get naked.
A little bit.
Nobody wants to fight a naked guy.
It's more about being weird.
Yeah,
the naked part.
Or is it not about just that's the right justifiable time to get completely naked?
Like Greco-Roman, like just Olympian wrestling. Yeah,
no other time. They'd be like, I had to fight that dude.
Not with.
I had to.
Maybe
you do that with clothes on.
Yeah, maybe at a time where there's more grass, but this is the concrete jungle. Lost its benefit. It really lost its benefit when you fall and you immediately will just lose your skin.
Why are you assuming we're getting in a fight in the city? I could be drunk at a honky tonk.
That's still a hard floor.
That's true.
You're not fighting in mud floors anymore.
I just love that, like, I'm picturing all these people surrounding, like, oh yeah, it's a fight. Like, they're cheering and they're yelling, and everyone's like, yeah, as you take off your shirt, and they go, as you take off your pants, the mood completely changes surrounding the fight.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think it would probably. It would probably disconnect the fight. It probably would.
That's a great way to dissuade violence in RPGs. Just have the NPCs act fucking like every once in a while. One of them is just like, I don't want to fight this guy because he's crazy. Like this elf is in this bar is naked and he's walking. He's like, I don't want to fight you anymore. I'm good. I don't want to.
Yeah. Make it seem like, why am I fighting this important person?
I've been alive for 3,000 years and never have I had quite such of a rush.
And you advertise that guy does not have a morale score. He's not. If you engage him, he's not going to stop.
Yeah, that makes someone want to attack him.
He's nuts. Maybe. Well, that's another thing that the old school gives us, which is the fact that you had a lot less hit points.
Yeah.
Like, you would be a level 4 fighter and have like 18.
Yeah.
And then most weapons do 1 to 6 damage. So somebody come up with a dagger and hit you and stab you and do 6 points of damage. You're like, oh, that's 2 more hits and I'm down. Like, I'm good. Like,
incentives,
shit.
Yeah, don't fight.
It's designed differently.
Yep.
The incentives that the game was designed with back in the day address all of the things that we're talking about in one way or another, and those have all been removed when it became like a fantasy skirmish game. Mm-hmm. And it's a very important, and it's just crazy how much they changed the game when they removed these mechanics that they thought were antiquated, but it's like, no, they all were a certain way. And now you have like fucking power gaming munchkins who want to murder everything in sight. And it's like, I'm sure that existed before too, but it sure was a lot fucking harder to pull off because the game wasn't designed that way. You know?
Yeah, unless you had a group that designed it themselves that way, yeah.
Oh yeah, a group who ran the game wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it really is like a weird dehumanization. Like in real life, if you name them a number, you don't see them as a person,
right?
And so in RPG, if you don't name them or make them do anything except do one thing, then it's just the same thing. It doesn't matter. Murder is murder.
I'm definitely gonna do that if I run because especially for like track marks, which a huge part of it is you're playing like this corrupt police force that everybody hates. So of course you're out here kicking down doors and doing this shit. So everyone's gonna have a fucking name because you're doing this to civilians.
Yeah.
You know, even if some of these civilians suck and want you dead, it's still like you're the bad guys. You're the bad guys here.
Take Mandicare.
I tried to do that in Ravenloft because I have the whole idea of you guys starting to wage the war against the Falcovians. Meanwhile, Matt was just walking around, and I was like, I'm going to have him go to a Falcovian town and village and actually
I was
get to know the people.
completely different story.
And then Matt was like...
That was a series in HBO.
Matt was like, nah, I'm going to just go into the woods.
It was like a nature.
Yeah, right now I'm thinking about it. I was like an HBO series. Everyone else was D&D.
You were Meerkat Manor, and then we were all...
Yeah.
I was doing own thing, no murder, just short stories during the way.
I tried to have a whole arc of humanizing the enemy in the war, and instead I had you going to philosophy Hogwarts, and then there's a bomb threat.
Yeah.
Somebody phones in a bomb threat from the subway, yeah.
And the bomb threat was your girlfriend-ish. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was sort of the other romantic thing I did.
Yeah, I thought you'd bring that up, yeah. I was like, thanks.
Yeah, that was heavily forced.
Yeah.
Very much, you're my boyfriend now. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I leaned into it, no, because I was like...
You did.
Because Noble was doing that stuff, and I was like, okay, I'll do it as a character.
Yeah, but I did it from her. She's an assassin the entire time.
Yeah.
I had reason.
Yeah.
Well, she had reason.
Yeah, she had reason. But, yeah. Names.
Yeah.
Incentives.
Names and incentives.
And well, yeah, building consequences, making murder, senseless murder. What people don't like. Hey, this random person keeps senselessly murdering. I don't think society's going to like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because other people are going to take that as a challenge.
That's true.
That's how I think that. I think that way too one-to-one is what Casey doesn't like. I'm usually one-to-one about that. If you do something, there is consequences.
Yeah, but
very quickly.
They're a bit too immediate.
That's what I'm saying.
Breaks the immersion.
That's what I'm saying. It's too fast.
You're like, I'm just gonna unlock this door, and you do, and then a guy's like, I just watched you do that. I am not a cop. I just work here, and it's a big issue. And you're like, what? Why am I dealing with this at the moment? And then
yeah, like the one where I was like, what do we want to do? And then I was like, okay, you see that there's some missions on the board, and the mission was to go in this house and help this guy move, but the moving was just stealing stuff because adventurers are easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
Hey, you gotta get this stuff out of here. Okay, and then he's just like, all right, get the fuck out, hurry.
If they were any smarter, they wouldn't be adventurers.
That's my thought, yeah. So then they just broke into someone's house because they're like,
true.
oh, this lock doesn't work. Can some adventurer help me?
That's what Torchbearer does that I like a lot. The tagline is like adventurer is a dirty word.
Yeah.
Like you literally are like not even like your community wants you around because you just suck.
I guess I would view it like that.
Your only option is to go delve into is to go grave robbing.
You're a mercenary.
That's like your only option.
You're literally a mercenary.
Yeah.
That's how I guess I view it then. Mm-hmm. You're literally a mercenary. Unless you decide otherwise, but people are going to treat you that way. You're here for money. What else do you want?
Yeah. Especially
and
back
start
in the day
murdering
when
people.
Literally the only way you advance was getting money.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many that are like, fuck this adventuring shit. We're going to go become highwaymen.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Or become a guard.
Yeah.
Skyrim.
Yeah, hire me to guard your shit. Yeah.
All right. Are we good?
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's good shit.
Just cut out all the and I think it's good.
Yeah, like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thanks. He's like,
thanks for another one. Yeah, no.
Thanks.
I literally listened to all of it, so I'm sure I'll have a lot of.
I hope we do something else during that.